Alexei Navalny has died in Russian prison. The reaction around the world has been intense, and we'll go into that. But I want to give a very brief summary about kind of what his life has been like and why he's an important character. So, if anyone doesn't know, Alexei Navalny was the main opposition leader to Vladimir Putin in Russia. He led anti-corruption campaigns since the early 2010s, and he has always been basically Putin's foil over the last 10 years.
Yes, he's been the main figure for anybody who's pro-democracy, anti-authoritarianism in Russia to rally around.
Yeah, so he really came to fame rallying around the 2011 elections. This was, I believe it was like a midterm election equivalent in Russia, and he was campaigning and protesting in these elections. He led this group of 1,000 around people in one of the squares in Moscow, and there was a police confrontation there where he was, a leading figure of that. Now, in these 2011 elections, international authorities have suggested that the election was rigged. Now, I want to take those claims seriously, and I wanted to try to examine how close, what I could learn about those 2011 elections. And the claims for election fraud are pretty substantial. To basically explain what's going on here, the way that they saw the vote totals come in from the different precincts around Russia, there are significant spikes around multiples of 5 in Putin-heavy strongholds. So all of a sudden, these Russian municipalities that are pro-Putin are coming up with 65, 75, 70, and it's all very exact. Like the line is going like this, whereas every other country has a very nice normal Gaussian distribution to it. And then, you got Putin's Russia just going like...
That makes sense. I mean, it's so... They're so lazy about it.
Yeah.
Which, of course, as the dictator that he is, and as the obviously sham democracy that Russia has had for the last 25 years, it makes sense.
It's funny because it's not even efficiency is one way of looking at it, right? It's super inefficient. Like they're not good at hiding it, right?
Yeah.
But this is also people being really scared for their lives because if their municipality is supposed to return 85% and then they only return 82, they're like, shit, I got to get that 85 right now by any means necessary. You know what I mean?
For sure.
The Wall Street Journal did its own analysis, and they found that 14 million out of the 67 million vote casted were fraudulent. Now, I couldn't find the exact analysis that was done by Wall Street Journal, but that's what they were suggesting. Now, following this bout with the 2011 election, Navalny and his team released exposés on officials and business figures around Russia, including Putin himself, was exposing Putin for the different, I think there was a massive mansion that he owned on the Black Sea.
I looked into this recently, actually. So I was curious about, I don't know what brought it to my mind. I was wondering how much Putin is worth.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look online, his net worth is something under $1 million. He plays off being super modest.
He might be the most richest man in the world.
Yes, the article that I read suggested he's worth around $200 billion. And apparently they narrowed it down to around 2004. He jailed some oligarch in Russia, and the other ones all came to him and they're like, what will it take to make sure we never get treated this way? And the folklore is that he responded half. They wanted half of everything they made, half of everything they had to just be paid as tribute to him. And one of the things I learned about was this mansion, which is the biggest property in Russia on the Black Sea, which is just Putin's play place.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Alexei Navalny was the one who kind of exposed that.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome.
Now, in 2013, he isn't just a journalist anymore. He's going to try to be a politician. And he runs for mayor of Moscow in 2013. This was actually the first election for the mayor of Moscow. It used to be an appointed position.
Okay.
This is the first time the Moscovites are electing their own leader. So he pegged himself to an established party titled the People's Freedom Party. He also formed his own party called the People's Alliance, but didn't really go anywhere. The People's Freedom Party was what he pegged himself to have more clout. And so when the election finally comes rolling around, he loses. Now, what's interesting about where he loses and how he loses is his major opponent, Putin's ally, wins by 51%. Navalny comes in second, close to 27%, way exceeding polls, way exceeding expectations.
Oh, okay.
Way exceeding expectations. He was supposed to get 15, 16. Navalny campaign thought best case scenario 25. He ends up getting 27.
Wow.
So, but his opponent gets 51%. Now, how lucky for that guy, he was able to avoid a runoff because he gets over 50% by getting 51%. So Navalny is able to do a little bit of digging, and he cooperates with some statisticians in Russia, and he finds evidence of election fraud in this election. And so then he refuses to concede and argues that it's rigged in court. Now, this is when the apparatus of the Russian state and lawfare starts going at him and starts basically threatening to like charge him with crimes of embezzlement. This comes to a head in 2018 when he decides to run for president. He decides to run for the 2018 presidential election in 2017. Okay, that's when he declares his presidency. Well, he was threatened to be thrown in jail for crimes of embezzlement. Okay, this didn't really stop him though. He was going to keep going, but by Russian law, there's like a whole bunch of intricacies that I'm not well enough to know about. But he was able to stay out of jail to keep the campaign running for a while.
I wonder if he's campaigning just kind of with the intention of shining a light on the non-democracy of the system.
Oh, yeah.
No expectation to win.
No expectation to win.
Yeah.
No. He even calls for a couple times in his history, he calls for boycotting the elections because he knows they're all bull anyway.
Okay.
Which I'm never a fan of, but it is what it is. That's some people's strategy. But during the campaign, he's going around. This is when he gets attacked with chemicals. He gets sprayed with chemicals in the eyes. He loses 80% of vision in one of his eyes. This is a very famous attack in 2017. This is a really big deal. And then Navalny was sentenced to 20 days in jail on October 2nd, 2017, for calls to participate in protests without approval from state authorities. That's the real danger of living in an autocracy right there.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Totally.
So now, in December 2017, the Central Russians Electoral Commission bans Navalny from being able to run for president. He's done. He's out of there. And so Navalny dips. He leaves. He goes to exile. He goes to Germany, and he hangs out there for a while. But eventually he decides, no, this isn't right. I can't run away. And so he returns. And when he returned to Russia, upon him entering Russia, a few days later, he gets thrown in jail. And in jail, he stayed until he died a few days ago.
Yeah.
And so that's the life of Alexei Navalny. It's tragic. I mean, it's like he didn't get to see his liberal dream in Russia arise.
No.
And I hope, that the world leaders of the world and, people will be able to take up his mantle out of this.
It's certainly inspiring, right? Because it takes a lot of courage to be the main person in the spotlight of the authoritarian dictator, right? And standing up against them, knowing that any backlash against your movement is going to land squarely upon your shoulders before it hits anyone else.
Yeah, and I want to go to my next section here about, does Russia have another liberal hope?
Okay.
Is there someone after Navalny?
Yeah.
Does someone exist? And the answer is unfortunately kind of no.
No.
Navalny was like he was a personality figure that was able to kind of group together all these different factions, right? All the left-leaning people who wanted, down with the Russian form of government, all even like hard right nationalists who didn't like what Putin was doing. A lot of them also like Navalny. He was able to coalesce this larger coalition behind the phrase and meaning of democracy that other parties can't do. So, here's some examples. Leftists and communists are extremely split. The leadership of the Communist Party has cheered Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and this has totally alienated grassroots supporters of the party. So, the leftist communists aren't true opposition anyway. They're like a play opposition to Putin.
Are they? I mean, I know because Navalny supported the invasion of Ukraine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. They can support the invasion of Ukraine, but also want democracy in Russia.
That's fair. That's fair. Liberals are almost universally against Putin and the war itself, but they are few in number, to be honest. There just aren't that many liberals in Russia to form a long-lasting, true political party with a lot of power.
Yeah, it makes sense given a political landscape that is completely barred conversation about liberal ideology for the past 25 years.
And so Michael McFaul, he's a Russian advisor. He was a Russian advisor to the Obama administration, and he said, I don't see anybody of Navalny's stature left on the stage.
Which again, unfortunately, is props to Putin for completely effectively eliminating any kind of political opposition to him. Props as in he's been effective at it, but it's not a good
dictator.
thing. Yeah,
he's
exactly.
been an effective dictator.
Yeah.
Someone who is coming out and trying to pose themselves as a liberal alternative is actually his wife. Yulia Navalnaya I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She said that she would take up her husband's mission to topple Vladimir Putin's regime. She said, and I quote, "By killing Alexei, Putin killed half of me, half of my heart and half of my soul. But I still have the other half, and it tells me that I have no right to give up. It will be difficult." Okay, so no right to give up. She is going to try her best to take it to Putin, but this is not going to be easy because the people of Russia don't really look to her with much legitimacy anymore because she's been in Germany for so long.
Okay.
They see her as kind of disconnected to the Russian populace because she's been in basically exile. So whether or not she has enough clout to actually have the same effect as Navalny, we'll have to see. But I'm glad she's trying. You know,
I suppose. Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
because who else?
I mean, it doesn't really matter though,
Right.
because like even you're saying to have the effect of Navalny. The effect of Navalny is someone who, like, I don't know, occasionally started some protests and then got jailed and killed.
Right.
So like, there's no real change here. Like on the world stage, there's not a real outcome. It's just a great time to remind ourselves of how evil Putin is.
Right.
Right.
That's important.
Yes.
Thank you. It's an important time to remember how evil Putin is.
Yeah.
So because of that, I want to take us around the world and see how different world leaders reacted to the death of Navalny. Because the true thing that comes out of this story is to understand how evil Putin is.
Yes.
Perfect. Biden says, "We don't know exactly what happened, but there is no doubt that the death of Navalny was the consequences of something that Putin and his thugs did." Olaf Scholz of Germany. "But now we know exactly what kind of regime this is," referring to Putin.
Of course.
Then we have Macron. I think Macron is my favorite statement, actually. "In today's Russia,
Macron is the leader of France.
Thanks. Yeah, Emmanuel Macron is the leader of France. "In today's Russia, free spirits are sent to the gulag and condemned to death. Anger and indignation. I pay tribute to the memory of Alexei Navalny, his dedication, his courage. My thoughts go out to his family, loved ones, and to the Russian people." That's an awesome statement.
Yeah,
It
I agree.
talks about the absolute depths of despair that is the Russian government's persecution of the Russian people.
Yeah,
right.
I love "free spirits are sent to the gulag and condemned to death." It's damning of Putin. Like
Yes.
it's putting the blame directly on him and the government.
And what is so important about this is we understand how disgusting Putin is.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's Trump's statement on the death of Alexei Navalny. "The sudden death of Alexei Navalny has made me more and more aware of what is happening in our country. It is a slow, steady progression, and crooked, radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down a path to destruction. Open borders, rigged elections, and grossly unfair courtroom decisions are destroying America," in all caps. And then in all caps, "We are a nation in decline, a failing nation, MAGA 2024. What the...
Selfish.
Is he... So... This is his only statement on Alexei Navalny, by the way.
Yeah.
This is his only statement. He didn't make any other statements about him at all, except in how he could compare Navalny untruthfully to himself. And he has no mention of Vladimir Putin's regime under any circumstance. No. Nothing. No condemnation, no denouncement, nothing. Almost celebration.
I don't know about almost. Let's chill. No, but I think, to me, it just screams it's like when you're watching a TV show and it's so obvious what the characters are doing, but the characters aren't supposed to know each other's intentions so that they can keep playing at the bit, right? To say like crooked radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down a path of destruction, grossly unfair courtroom decisions are destroying America. To me, it sounds like someone who's trying to rile up a base to protect him the justice system comes at him. And it's so obvious.
Yes.
Like it's almost painfully obvious.
It's almost painful that people will then look at this statement and be like, "You got him, Trump.
Yeah, and like,
good one.
Yes.
You got him, boss."
It's crazy.
It's like, what are you guys on right now?
But the truth is, of course, like Trump can't he can't go for Putin's regime. Like he can't attack it because his own values of what he will instill when he's in office are too aligned with Putin's regime.
We aren't suggesting that he's in Putin's pocket and Putin owns him. That's not true. That's not what we're suggesting.
No.
What we're suggesting is Trump just agrees with Putin.
Well, because Trump has said explicitly that he would jail his political opponents.
Yeah.
Because, of course, again, that plays into his story that he is being unfairly prosecuted for all of these crimes, and that the crooked radical left politicians are just forging these cases to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So when he sees, so he's using that to be like, okay, when I get into office, I'm going to strike back right at them. And so if he sees Putin jailing his political opposition, and he's explicitly said, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, he can't really criticize what Putin is doing.
Yeah, I mean, no, he can't. Of course not. So we just, this is awful. It's the death of, a Russian attempt at liberalization. We'll see how the next decade plays out, like who comes after Putin and how that whole nightmare of a thing turns out, right? What's the successor going to be to that?
Yeah, I'd highly doubt democracy.
No, I highly doubt democracy. No. I don't even know. But point is, Alexei Navalny has passed, and Trump's statements on it are disgusting.
Yeah, the one other thing I'll add is I just saw today the Biden administration has said that they're going to enact more sanctions on Russia because of Navalny's death. Those are going to be coming out on Friday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we don't know what those are yet. I was skeptical that they would even be able to, because their sanctions on Russia are already so strict and tight based on their invasion of Ukraine. But it'll be interesting to see how else.
I'm curious what else they're able to do.
Yeah.